Hello everyone, and welcome to Venturelicity, your source for Valorant news on the internet, specifically YouTube, or I guess whatever site you're seeing this embedded on. I'm Jackson, which means that I am still not Veluxe, but I do promise her triumphant return is coming. So, in Valorant, Kayo was released, Masters is over, and the teams have shaken up. That means it's time for us to start talking about Challengers events that are coming in the next few months. It's going to be interesting seeing what teams rise to the top. Are we going to be seeing the same teams at Masters Berlin that we did at Masters Reykjavik, or are there going to be some notable exceptions? Only time is going to tell. Oh, and yes, I did say coming months. If you're new to Valorant Challengers events, they are frankly gigantic, going all the way from open qualifier to a more traditional round of 32 in most regions. There are some changes coming to the format since we just finished our first international event, but we're going to cover all of those in a minute. First thing to bring up is that Breeze is making its professional debut in Valorant, which means you're going to be seeing a switch up in how maps are picked in the game. Here's how it's going to break down. In best of 1 events, the higher seeded team is going to pick whether they want to choose side or map. Once they've chosen, a team that picks map will ban 3 maps, alternating with the team that is on side, who gets to ban 2. Once teams are down to 1 map, that map gets picked, and the team that picked side gets to choose which side they want to be on. This honestly shouldn't change the format of map drafting that much for best of 1, but it's important to keep in mind it is going to cause teams to heavily skew away from maps that have a statistically significant side advantage. Best of 3 is where things get a little more complicated because there's a difference in map selection format between qualifiers and main event. In qualifiers, each team gets to ban 1 map and then alternate picking a map for the game. If a team picks a map, the other team gets to pick which side they start on for it. Easy enough. Higher seeded team gets to select whether they choose 2 maps or get to pick the side preference twice. I feel like I've said the words map and side way too many times already, and we're like halfway done this whole thing. Okay, what about the main event? In the main event, teams are going to rank their favorite maps. These maps are then set in a seeded order. Rather than having one team pick 2 maps, which can be a fairly heavy advantage, each team chooses 1 map, and the highest seeded map remaining after picks and bans is set in as the 3rd map for the match. There is an interesting twist here, though. Because there are only 2 selections being made, some of the pick timings are moved around. Namely, Team A is the only team in the whole event that gets to pick the map and side for one of the rounds. That is big. Sure, Team B gets to choose their side for the crowd favorite map, but that's not as impactful as being able to choose a comfort on your favorite map. I personally find it very interesting that they left that in. Once we get to best of 3s in North America, we'll see how it works and how it's going to shake down in Berlin. Do you want to know who won't shake you down? Senshigami. Are you looking for a community of people who are excited to share their passion and progress with one another? Then look no further. Independent creator from artists to writers to streamers and everyone are all working with Senshigami to help each other and chase our dreams. Join us, and yes, that includes both me and Veluxe. One small thing before we get going with a quick explanation of how the next few weeks are going to work for our qualifying teams, our shiny new agent, Kayo, is going to have quite the wait before joining the battle. Kayo will be open for pros to pick in professional events as of July 22nd. Until then, it's the same Valorant roster you know and love. What that translates to is get your games of Jet and Raisin while they're still good in pro play. Now, on to what Challenger events actually are, and what we need to keep an eye out for in the coming weeks. In North America, there are going to be 2 separate open qualifiers, each with 128 teams that are competing for a total of 12 slots in the main event. In these open qualifiers, there are going to be everything from completely unknown teams to powerhouses like Sentinels and Version 1, though it's worth noting that some of the high-ranked teams like those 2 will have buys into the round of 32 for this event. Basically, the first week of Challengers event in NA is going to be watching for big upsets, but outside of some standout games, which we will mention on the Detention Avenue Discord, it's probably going to be a quieter week news-wise. Once the first qualifier is done, there is an 8-team main event. top 4 go directly to Challengers playoffs. The bottom 4 of that 8-team main event get a chance in another 2 weeks. Then there is another open qualifier, which picks the 4 top teams from that open qualifier and puts them into a second main event with the bottom 4 from the previous main event. The top 4 from that actual event then go into the main Challenger event, which is going to be on August 11th. Goodness gracious, Riot Games, that is only one of the multiple worldwide events we're supposed to cover? I guess there'll be no shortage of games for those of us who are locked inside during the summer, eh? Like I mentioned above, the key in these first few weeks is going to be keeping an eye out for upsets. Some teams that struggled last round might make it further. And honestly, several games getting away from a single team might result in NA not sending one of the big top-tier teams like Version 1s to a Masters event in Berlin. Also, for what it's worth to alleviate the headache, the EMEA Challenger event is following a mostly similar format, save for the fact that each of the core territories, EU, TR, and CIS, all get their own version of the event that we just explained for NA, then narrowed down to that main event where it's going to be the EMEA Finals. Don't worry, we'll update you to keep track of where every match is happening and what the important ones are to watch. Heck, that's not even talking about Brazil or Korea or... The point is that Breeze is going to be getting one heck of a stress test. It'll be interesting to see how much each map shows up in drafts during the first week of Challengers next week. One more reminder that this show and all the lovely content on this channel is brought to you by Senshigami. If you want to support content like this, check out senshigami.com for bold designs made in collaboration with streamers, artists, and more. Have an absolutely awesome day, everyone, and don't worry, there will always be a match to watch in Valorant esports in the coming weeks.